So raise your hand. Does anybody have something that worked really well that had nothing to do with Zoom? Might have needed a phone, but didn't use Zoom. John, you got something for us? What'd you do?
Yeah,
What'd you try?
well, I'm more intrigued about your shotgun start for a hike.
Ah,
How does that actually get executed and not be an in-person event? Is it a
well,
scouting
so the
event or is it just
families are doing it as families, right?
as
So,
family?
for instance, those of you may not be familiar with the PD Loop Trail. You get the map of the trail, and right now, I don't know, Matt. I haven't been by the gates of Rolling Hills There's a segment of the trail that's behind the gates at Rolling Hills, and I know
Yeah,
they've
we
not
did
wanted
a
people on their
that's
trails.
yeah,
So,
it's a
but
little
26 miles, you figure you could have families being, stationed a mile apart, and you're going to say we're all going to start in our spot and hey, I would totally incorporate GPS in this, right? Here's your spot on the map. Here's where you're going to start. You're going to start here. We're all going to start at, I don't know, we're all going to start at 2 o'clock on Saturday, and we're going to hike for 3 miles in a clockwise direction, and then we're going to turn around and come back. The families will never probably run into each other, right? But we're all kind of doing a communal activity as families spread out.
Even though no
Does
one
that make
will
sense?
really see anybody or commune with anybody, basically.
No, it's still not that, but at least it's a shared experience. And then what the scouts can do at the meeting afterwards is say, "Hey, this is the segment I did." And
Okay.
again, personally, I love in the old days, right? Because everybody knows I have a flip phone, right? I don't have a GPS transceiver on my phone. When our son was young, Bob and I loved to take Mike letterboxing. So, and you can still do letterboxing. It's basically the old-fashioned way of doing geocaching. So it might be kind of fun if you were doing a distributed hike for every scout on every segment to notice something at a certain GPS coordinate. And then maybe next Saturday or 2 Saturdays from now, we all do a different segment and try to find out if the scout says, "Hey, look at this object at these coordinates." Okay, well, what is that? Did you find it?
And that
Let's
could be
see.
and that could be counted then as a scout activity. It would be a
Absolutely.
So the challenge that Troop 788's Patrol Leaders Council has had is wrapping their brains around doing something a different way. And so what we have tried to do is employ the same processes we do for our standard outings and do everything the same except up to the last few tweaks of now realize that we're all going to be doing this activity in a separate place. So what do you need to change about your plan because we're in a different place? But everything else we've done the same way. So for our new families and new scouts, that introduces them to how does Troop 78 plan a camp out, for example, or you can do it for how do you plan a hike. And then it just comes down to, okay, for this hike, you're going to have different map segments and you're going to have different starting points. But everything else about the hike, how to prepare for it, the gear you need, how to make sure you've got your 10 essentials, how you hike safely, which way you walk if you're walking along the road, um, all that kind of stuff can all be done just like you would normally do it within your troop. And so for my PLC at least, and they're kind of on the young side right now, that has been key to helping them get their heads around, okay, we're planning a camp out. Just talk about it that way. You're planning a camp out, you're planning a hike, and then add the virtual tweak at the end. I've found if you say, let's plan a virtual camp out, their heads just explode. They can't wrap their head around that concept. So call it your normal term, do it your normal way as absolutely much as you can, and then tweak at the end because of the unique circumstance.
fantastic. Thank you very much.
Hey, Nancy, this is Dane.
Hey, Dane.
How are you?
Good, thanks. What's up?
Well, our troop, we did a virtual camp out, but one of the fun activities was the scavenger hunt that we did. We had the boys pair up and go outside with their adult, with an adult with them at all times, and we gave them like a huge list of items that they needed to find and take pictures of. Some were very easy to find, like a stop sign, and some were very obscure, like you needed to take a picture of a certain model refrigerator that cost thousands of dollars. And to our surprise, someone actually had one in our unit. But that scavenger hunt it really worked out well. And all I would say as far as advice is, I think this is like a great time to have your senior scouts show their leadership abilities. These are unusual times, and so it's a great way to get them to think outside the box. I like what Bob just said. That's a great way to attack a problem. Just address it and then put a little twist on it, and you should be able to get through it. And one of the things that I've been doing and our leadership team has been doing is we've been encouraging the boys. We say some activities will work, some will bomb. But the main thing is just try to keep things fresh, keep it light, and just see where it goes. And hopefully it'll be a great adventure.
Yeah, so the one, of course, Dane probably did that before the council guidance came out. So now we couldn't have two families with two unrelated families in separate households buddy up, right?
No, and actually, Nancy, none of the scouts actually buddied up physically. They were all different locations.
Oh, cool. They were teams.
Yeah, they were teams, and they communicated by cell phone.
Excellent.
And so, my son was running through the house saying, hey, I need this. And we were at my in-laws' house, so obviously he didn't know where it was. But, they had a fun time doing it. And
yeah, that sounds like a great patrol activity. And Matt, Dane, I don't know if you can see the chat, but Matt is asking, could you share the list with us? That'd be fun. I know Bob and I were talking last night on our walk about Rube Goldberg machines, because we've been actually, I don't know if Sheila's joined us in this room, but Sheila Stewart, who is our Camporee chair, has been really trying to think about how can we reimagine Camporee, and one of the things she's been talking about is boxes. And so it's like, well, what if you, I don't know, went to the hardware store and got a couple of weird things and put in, I don't know, a paper plate and a man's tie or something like that, and inexpensive things, and sent it to every scout who wanted to participate and say, you got to make a Rube Goldberg machine that dispenses hand sanitizer and uses these three objects. Kind of the whole Apollo 13, dump stuff on the table and make something with this. Has any troop in this, Dane, a question from John. How long did you allot for how much time did they have for the scavenger hunt?
We gave them 1 hour. And basically what we did when we did our virtual camping, rather than be online, on Zoom, and constant communication throughout the day, we just had various check-in times. So we started the event at 11 o'clock. Everyone came together. We did all our openings. And then we said, okay, everyone, we're going to be meeting for lunch. So you guys need to prepare everything for lunch. So we'll check back in about an hour. And then basically they just checked in periodically throughout the day. And we went all the way to 10 o'clock that night, I believe.
Awesome.
We had a very fascinating virtual Court of Honor recently. And it took a lot of preparation. And it just so happens our webmaster was the master of ceremonies for us. He and his father is our music merit badge counselor for the troop. So what they did is we have a band that we like to put together, the adults and the scouts. And so we had everybody play their musical instrument, their part, and sent a digital copy of that instrument over to get it assimilated into the Star Spangled Banner. So we had one scout doing the salute, and maybe we could actually share it here at Roundtable next month, but they had one scout doing the calls, and then we had two other scouts who were brothers at the scout house doing the flags. So they were digitally interposed on each other. So it was a very creative means to actually see some of this in work and not worry about the overlay of 15 people trying to say the same thing at the same time on Zoom.
Yeah, I know several units have had really successful virtual courts of honor and done it different ways. Some, Marie, I think you're from Troop 191, right? And yours was all pre-recorded and edited. There was no live component to it at all, as I understand. Is that right?
Right, there was no live component, so what we did was we built in some, for those scouts that needed the communications requirements, they were the MCs, and so they, would announce the scouts and the ranks that they've, excuse me, um, that all the the merit badges and ranks that all the scouts have accomplished since November. And then, as you know, we did an opening and closing ceremony with the flags, and we actually filmed it ahead of time down at the Veterans Memorial.
Now, I don't know about the schools that your scouts are in, but I know that my son's school, lip sync videos were a big thing. So they had a class lip sync video contest. I don't know if your scouts would go for that. The other thing that seems to be popular at his school, and that's a high school, and it's small, right? It's a private school. Classes are, there's maybe 300 kids, 400 kids in the entire school. They also were working on parodies. So, and matter of fact, I think it was Marie at your Court of Honor. I think the closing music was a Boy Scout rap I have never heard before. It was really cool. I don't think it's actually a parody. I think it's some rapper actually did a Scout rap. So, if you have boys who are willing to do okay, I'm going to show my age. I think it's called the TikTok challenge is the dance one. And then I think lip syncing is something else. And then, of course, there's tons of parodies. I was telling my husband, I made the mistake of listening to a parody on Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, but COVID style, and I cannot get it out of my head. If you have scouts that are theatrical and fun and kind of, doing that anyway, that can be entertaining. I know we've had some folks, John Locano, back to kind of the idea about the distributed hikes. I know we've had units looking into bike rides as well and doing different segments of either, and it's been hard because the beaches keep opening and closing, right? But if you've never seen the LA bike ride routes, there's a lot of safe places to ride your bike here in LA. For your younger scouts, so I was walking my son and I were walking Terraneta Point Vicente today, and trying to get scouts out to tide pools, try to get them their 10 wild animals. They can do that in family units. There's tons of places you can get your wild plant or native plants and wild animals, right? So, hey, what did you see today? Today my son and I saw a pod of dolphins. Okay, that's pretty cool. What other outdoor, and again, so Richard, if you guys have never done Operation on Target, so again, it's mirror signaling from mountain to mountain. It is a charge, my friends. If you have families who are willing to go to a mountain, have them call Richard. Richard, you're sitting there in your hat, right? So that's Richard there. It is so much fun. These families can go to the top of a mountain. They can work with Richard. If they have somebody who can work amateur radio, all the better, right? And I think Richard a mountaintop is big enough that you could probably work a ham radio operator, on one end of the parking lot, a family on another parking lot. He can show you how to create a signal mirror. And let me tell you, friends, when you see that mirror flash on the other mountain, it is amazing. It is so cool. Anybody have any questions about Operation on Target for Richard here? Again, I think for your families who are adventurous and like, we just got to get out of the house. Richard, when's the first one? Which weekend in July? Like it's 2 weeks from now, right?
The first one is the Saturday after next.
Okay.
And then we also do the third Saturday in September.
Okay.
Right now, the peaks we have signed up for Saturday after next are pretty much in the mountains that ring kind of Temecula Riverside sort of thing.
And realistically, what's the worst that could happen? You don't see the flash. It's pretty unusual that you don't see the flash, right? But at least you got to go have picnic on the mountaintop. And there's a pretty cool pin that comes with it too. So that's definitely an option. It's really cool. Let's see.
Just a quick question on that. So is it just one family per mountain? Is
Yes.
that? Oh,
Main
that's
Well, we
how we're
can't
charge.
have
doing it?
families gather. So, but like in your troop, if there were a ham radio operator in one family and a scout in another family, but then it gets tricky because if you only take one mirror, right, we can't be gathered. So, I don't know. I'll leave that
Oh, so you
up
can
to the
take
families
turns,
in
I
Richard.
guess.
And you can't carpool, right? So, but I would think that you could probably work it out.
Yep.
I don't know. Uh, yeah. And again, our food drive here at the end of the month. If you've got scouts that need service hours, right? Please make sure that those families know. And again, I'm sorry. I wish they could drop off their very responsible, 15 and 16-year-olds. Can't do that. I need a parent or guardian to be supervising that scout. I have asked. I have asked whether there are conservation projects we can do at Cabrillo. I can't remember whether we said something tonight. We just got word that all program at Cabrillo has been canceled for the rest of the year. So if you were thinking you were going to do the Scouts BSA day camp in August, or it was July and August, not going to happen. But I have asked our Charlie Wilson, the camping department falls under him at council. He's one of the few council professionals still working. So I've asked Charlie, okay, when you say Cabrillo is closed, does that mean Pam's not running program, or does that mean we can't camp there, we can't swim there, we can't do service projects there? Because, I'm thinking at least service projects we may be able to arrange because, let's face it, the grass and weeds grow, right? I am very sensitive to your scouts needing to do aquatics requirements. And even though pools are opening, arranging to get the qualified lifeguards there in order to get the people that can certify that your scout has finished the aquatics requirement, I don't know what we're going to do about that. Has anybody cracked that code yet without just a private personal pool?
Hey, Nancy, we just looked up and noticed that the Torrance Plunge is open for swimming.
Okay. Now, are they like my local pool here? It's open for lap swimming, but you have to have a reservation. And so only one person, right? They have, I don't know, I can't remember how many six. I think my pool is 6 lanes, and so there's there was a reservation for 3 every 30 minutes. And does it say, Mike?
The Torrance Plunge is huge, though. It's a huge pool.
Alt lap swimming by appointment only. Pool rentals for swim training organizations may be available. So you just have to
Oh,
make
There you
okay, all right. So maybe we can, if we'll have somebody look into that, and maybe we can have a whole. I think we're all going to need to cooperate together, right? So I'm sorry, Jim, were you gonna?
I was just going to make that announcement about the uh, Eagle extension for
Yeah,
COVID.
please.
That announcement, I think everybody was supposed to get it today, most of the adult scouters, but they did extend the extension from the council 3 months to 6 months. And it has to be the extension approval prior to June 30th. Okay, they're going to allow an additional 3 months.
Again, please be working with your chartered orgs if you can. Pen pal projects, right? So old fashioned, but you can do that. You can do crazy things like, hey, we're going to learn. I just got a cooking magazine today that was like, learn to make ricotta cheese at home. Okay, how many people have done that? That's kind of a crazy thing, right? So there are things we can certainly do, at home together, sort of things. Hey, Tim Nelson has a great idea, and Jim, this sounds like a real ingenious solution to me. If there's a project that can be done one family at a time, I think potentially that could work. I've also heard that there are projects, particularly if you're building something that can be put into kits. So, like we had a scout years ago that made hammocks for a pet shelter, and it was basically PVC pipe and fabric. So, had we been in COVID then, we didn't need to gather to do that. He could have made kits of 5 or whatever doorbell ditched them at Scouts, and then certainly provided leadership there. Jim, I think that depending on the project, right? You probably couldn't build a picnic bench that way, but there may be a way. Some projects may lend themselves to that.
I'm going to say yes, but like I mentioned earlier, I want to see the council guidelines. It may change or expand the Eagle projects.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Was this helpful? Again, if you have, and again, my hope is that, we've got a lot of smart and innovative people. Each of you is approaching this in a different way. And again, I want to assure you that we're all having various levels of success or lack thereof. But at this age level, let's let the youth lead. Let's have them give us their ideas, and see what we can do. We may need to reimagine it, repackage it, adjust it, but hopefully we can find something that really excites them. And I think that you guys saying, sometimes we're not meeting every week. Another thing I want to put a good word in for is our NOVA awards. So many of our NOVA awards, which are STEM centric, there's a whole section of them that is engineering based. And so, most of those require you to build something. So, at least the Scouts might get excited about building something. Most NOVA awards start with, watch 3 hours of programming about whatever, and since they're doing that anyway, and you might be able to get some NOVA awards out of that. If you're not familiar with NOVA awards, I think we have several NOVA counselors here on the line, so they might be able to put a good word in. Or if you have a STEM interest yourself or work in a STEM field, so that would be science, technology, engineering, and math. Allison, I don't know whether Allison was able to stick with us, but becoming a NOVA counselor is very similar to becoming a merit badge counselor. NOVA counselors are listed on her merit badge counselor list. So if you're looking to get started in the NOVA program in your troop and you don't have a counselor currently, work with Allison, and we will make sure that that might be another opportunity for you as well.
Nancy, this is Bob.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I put a couple of conservation service project ideas in the chat. Madrona Marsh, Palos Verdes Land Conservancy. I think there's a similar place in Gardena. So any natural area around the South Bay that has an entity that supports it probably would be quite happy to have a family visit them for a couple of hours and perform some conservation-related work.
Yeah, potentially. Just call ahead, right? I think that's going to be and as Bob pointed out before, this is going to be a great time to practice those telephone skills for our Scouts and asking questions and reaching out to people. Actually, our Sea Scout ship had some really cool ideas. Now, this was Zoom centric, but they've got a speaker series that they're working on. Let's see. Bruce and Tim, are you still here? Yeah, you had some ideas about chatting with all kinds of people in the maritime industry, using this opportunity to just chat with people that you may not be normally able to visit.
Yeah, again, this is Bruce. It's Zoom based, but if we can get these set up, of course, we'll try and make it available. Like being able to talk to the head of the port pilots for Port of Long Beach, and he's got an excellent presentation on maritime careers and what does it mean to be, bringing the hospital ship Mercy into the port or something like that. Should be very interesting to the kids.
Yeah, I want to put a plug in for our Sea Scout ship. They're relatively new. They've been working really hard to keep of course, they can't sail, right? For those of you who don't know, our Sea Scout ship 1992 is based out of the LA Maritime Institute. They sail the tall ships, the Irving and the Exie. And I think we've got one more. Are you sailing an additional boat there, Bruce?
Yeah, we have the American Pride
Oh, that's
in the
right.
city of Long Beach.
There
Yeah.
we go. So you know, for instance, if you have scouts that are struggling with knots, you know, call Bruce. In Sea Scouting, they do knots and what's called marlin spike, and they make some pretty cool things. So you know, if your scouts were just looking for something new and wanted to have a Zoom meeting with Sea Scouts, and what's that about? You know, that's good too. I don't know if you guys saw in Scouting Wire, there was a girls' troop who arranged a Zoom, and again, so this is back to Zoom now, who arranged a Zoom meeting with a scout troop of a female scout troop in Afghanistan, and that was really an amazing opportunity for them. So. Yeah, I mean, Zoom is, I think our scouts will burn out, but there are wonderful things that you can do on Zoom as well.